I might include that somewhere. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Beast Morphers episode review. Is the bloom of Beast Morphers quality starting to come off the rose? I've given the past 2 episodes 3.5 shades out of 5, the lowest scores of the season, while still very good. Will this episode be the one to push things back over the 4 line? Let's find out by taking a look at the 12th episode of Beast Morphers, Real Steel. In the lab, Nate is excitedly working on a pair of red claws, pouring Morph-X into them somewhere. He's not sure if they'll work, but if they do, they'll be a brand new, powerful weapon. Steel is bored and begs Nate to go do something fun. Oddly, he calls this part of becoming Jackrabbit Zords completely human. Again, with the TNG illusion, it's a nice callback to Data's quest to become human, but even Data acknowledged that he would never be completely human, and even twice told Q and Riker as a Q to not make him human.
Get on with it!
Geez, that was early this week. Nate insists that science can be fun, but Steel is unimpressed. Zoe tells Nate that Steel just wants to explore humanity alongside his brother, and he should take a break and go do so. Nate starts to, but then Devin walks in and agrees to teach Steel how to play basketball. Zoe says that Nate should go with them, but seemingly hurt by this, Nate says he has a lot to do. In a back alley somewhere, a worker moves a copying machine out to a truck. Blaze teleports in and transforms the copy machine into a monster. It scans the worker and then turns itself into an image of that worker. Blaze tells the monster that normally he'd want it to destroy the Rangers, but today he wants it to create one. Devin, Steel, and Zoe head back inside the lab, Steel having learned that basketball's rules do not allow for headbutting the ball. He tapes it up and then uses the air compressor to reinflate it. While this is going on, Ben and Betty bring in pizza for everyone, Steel knowing that it smells good, but being reminded that he doesn't have a mouth. However, this led him to forget about the ball, which overinflates and then pops, flying around the room like a balloon. As Nate walks in, Steel catches the ball, landing on the table with those red claws, which start to slide off. Nate grabs them and then starts going off on Steel about the lab being a sterile environment, which is why your friends felt perfectly fine eating pizza in there, hey Nate? And then another mishap like that will lead to Steel being banned from the lab. Steel is saddened that Nate is so angry and very apologetic. Commander Shaw contacts the Rangers on their wrist communicators, which I found a little weird since they're already in the base. She could have just gone and told them or contacted them on a screen or something. Anyway, she says that Blaze has been spotted nearby, and hey, he actually managed to make a Robotron this time. The Rangers head out to a nearby park and a bunch of people run away, but that worker from before sits on a bench calmly reading a newspaper. And the Rangers don't even bother telling this person to evacuate, they just start looking for the Robotron. Blaze teleports in and starts giving the Rangers a little speech about how it's nearly impossible to destroy an avatar and the Rangers should just give up, but then what would he do with his free time? Suggestion: baking. Anyway, is Blaze just being a melodramatic villain? Well, yes, but it does actually have a purpose. As the Rangers are distracted by the speech, the Robotron, who to this point doesn't have an on-screen name, I was guessing Copytron, though I really would have loved if it had been Scantron, because that would have reminded me of standardized testing from high school, changes back and scans Nate. Ravi gets the beast instinct to turn around, and the Rangers spot the monster. Blaze screams for Tronics! I missed that. And the fight begins. Little side note here though, I'll try to be quick. Colby Strong, who plays Blaze, noted on Twitter that this was Blaze's first unmorphed fight. Well, actually, just had to tease myself a little bit there, but yeah, Blaze did actually have that fight with Devin in the gym in the very first episode of the show. Though you could say this is his first unmorphed fight since he's had the ability to morph and even up the score. Okay, I get it. Moving on. Nate gets a little wrapped up in Tronics and screams out for some help. Steel runs right past Nate to go help Devin with Blaze. That does seem a little weird on the surface, but I mean, Devin is fighting Blaze, who has the power of an evil ranger, and Steel probably figured that Nate could handle a handful of Tronics all by himself, even if he was screaming for help. The nameless Robotron then attacks Nate, and that gets Steel's attention. He goes to take a shot at the monster, but Nate is not able to get clear. A Tronic then bumps into Steel, making him fire off aim, which makes Nate dodge and let go of the monster, which runs away. Nate is on tilt at this point, screaming at Steel and telling the other Rangers that it was Steel that let the monster escape. Steel insists that he didn't mean to, and the others say that they should just get back to the base. At the base, Nate finds Steel and Commander Shaw waiting for him in the lab.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
Shaw says that Nate and Steel's performance in that last fight was disappointing.
Excuse me, what?
I'm not really sure how. This kind of feels overblown by Shaw. She says she heard that Nate and Steel had a fight and they're just going to have to get over it for the Rangers to fight as a team. Steel is absolutely fine with this, offering his hand to Nate yet again. But just as Nate would be ready to apologize, Devin walks in with a brand new basketball. Nate says he has to go get some supplies, and Steel calls after him, but he doesn't turn around. Nate drives off, which I found weird at first since I guess he's at most 16, so I figured he would only have a learner's permit and thus couldn't drive alone. But I checked, and it turns out in California, drivers that have a learner's permit are permitted to drive alone during the day, so there we are. Anyway, before I get on with it, this is the chance that Blaze has been waiting for. The nameless Robotron transforms itself into Nate, and Blaze tells it to go into Grid Battle Force and destroy the computer that runs the Rangers' Zords. After the theme song, Abraham Rodriguez gets a great scene walking through Grid Battle Force. He smiles at workers and then scowls once he gets past them. It's just awesome. Steel runs into him and we get one of those, does he know? Okay, no, he doesn't know moments as Steel says that Nate isn't himself, Jackrabbit Zords, but he just means that it's not like Nate to stay angry like he has been. He tells Nate that he's cleaned the entire lab top to bottom as an apology, and Natron just accepts the apology, just trying to get rid of Steel. Steel says he'll go get the supplies from the car, and Natron gratefully takes the opportunity to get Steel out of the way. Outside, Steel checks one of the Grid Battle Force vehicles, but doesn't see anything. Nate then pulls up, Steel going to help, but Nate doesn't want his help. Steel is very confused since he thought that Nate had just forgiven him. Zoe runs after Nate, and while Devin offers Steel a chance to join their basketball game, he says there's something he has to go take care of. Zoe catches up with Nate, and hey, the comic relief, which I'm going to speak on later in a positive sense, believe it or not, at least gets a little bit of additional plot relevance, as Zoe rightly points out that Ben and Betty have messed up far worse than Steel did in this episode, and Nate forgave them pretty quickly. She thinks she gets what's going on here. Nate's mad that Steel didn't invite him to join them for basketball.
I get it.
I don't get it.
Nate tells her that it's more than that. He doesn't know how to play basketball, or baseball, or football. He grew up in a science lab, wishing that he had a brother that he could do science with. Now he finally has a brother, and that brother wants to play sports and thinks science, and thus Nate, is boring. Steel has been eavesdropping down the hall and can't believe that Nate would feel that way. He then sees Nate walk down the other side of the hall and try to open a door. Yeah, that's actually Natron, and Steele has now spotted the fact that there are two Nates. As the real Nate walks off with Zoe following, Steele follows the fake. The fake realizes that the computer in the main lab controls the Zords. I would have sworn that it was the consoles in the command center, but alas, and goes to smash it with a hammer. I'm pretty sure there are about 15 different guns in that room that would do a far more efficient job. Steele walks in and stops him, and after some banter about looking dumb, being smart, etc., Steele blasts the fake across the room and calls out for help. When the Rangers get to the lab, they find Steele in a shootout with Steele. The Rangers can't figure out who's who, as they both insist that they are Steele. The one on the left tells Nate that no matter what happens, they always stand together as brothers. The Rangers are convinced, turning to the one on the right. Right Steele tells Nate that he thought he was perfect, but he really messed up today. Not by trashing the lab, but by hurting Nate's feelings. When Nate said that he didn't want to play basketball, Steele took that statement at face value. He didn't realize that Nate didn't know how to play, because in his mind, Nate can do anything. Nate finally forgives his robotic brother, and the two hug it out. The fake realizes that the jig is up, and that it's been standing there with ample time to destroy the console, so it grabs the striker blaster that Steele had set down, using it to destroy the console and running away, calmly kind of faking its way back through Grid Battle Force before taking off once it's outside. Nate tells the Rangers to go after the monster while he and Steele fix the computer. The Rangers catch up to the monster and morph. Turns out, this monster's not all that good at fighting, but it is pretty talented at running away. Commander Shaw calls Nate in a panic and says they need those Zords.
What?
I think the scene was placed into the wrong part of the episode because there's nothing they need Zords for at this point. There's no Gigadrone. The very next scene is the Rangers kicking the monster around in a way that almost looks like they're bullying the thing. Just shoot it and put it out of its misery already. Blaze returns to the cyber dimension, telling Scrozzle to send a Gigadrone to take out the Zordless Rangers. And this is the point in the episode where we finally learn the monster's name, and only because the announcer voice in the cyber dimension says Clone Drone, which is a cute rhyme by the way, but also confirms that the monster's name is Clonetron. Then, kicking all that Zord drama right in the back of the knees, Nate calls Devin and says the Racer Zord's deployment systems are back online, but he's working on the others. It was one computer. How did he fix the deployment system for a single Zord but not the other? Anyway, Devin leaves and gets in his Zord while Zoe and Ravi handle Clonetron on the ground. Quite familiar, isn't it? It finally manages to blast the two, and they lay on the ground for a few seconds, like this is something that really hurt. But then right after that, the two of them go running straight at the monster, and Ravi chokeslams the thing, so I guess they got over it. Clonetron teleports in, and Devin makes a dang cool entrance with the Racer Zord, throwing his sword at the Gigadrone before his Zord's feet even hit the ground. Devin then tells Cruz to teleport in another sword, and what? Just what? We see a shot of the hangar where there's apparently an entire rack of swords. I don't remember this from Go Busters. It may come from the Sentai footage, but just wow. Clonetron does what it does best, copying the Racer Zord and turning into a duplicate of it. This thing is the ditto of giant robots. Anyway, Zoe slashes Clonetron and it's staggered, and Zoe and Ravi finally mercifully put it down with their Beast X cannons. Nate then calls and says their Zords are on the way. And this is when I realized that this is probably adapting an episode that comes before the Gold and Silver Rangers. Zoe and Ravi arrive on the scene in their Zords and of course can't tell who is who. Zoe tells Devin to wave, instead of, transmitting his exact coordinates. Of course, both Zords wave, so she comes up with another idea. shooting both of them. Clone drone transforms back into its main form. The Rangers form the Megazord, do the gun slash, and eliminate the virus. In the lab, Nate is back at work on those red claws, giving up an idea and balling up a piece of paper, throwing it in the trash can, and making a perfect basket. As Steel walks in, Nate takes another shot and makes it again, getting excited. Steel says, "See? Nate would be perfect at basketball," though Nate doubts that. Steel says that brothers don't keep secrets from each other, and Nate apologizes, saying he was embarrassed to be the only Ranger that's not good at sports. Steel drops a great line, telling Nate that Nate once told him that science is the exploration of the unknown. So, if Nate doesn't know how to play basketball, learning how is a type of science. That's not even mentioning that there's a ton of science in basketball, force and angles and acceleration and all that stuff. Nate agrees and they head outside. Outside, it's pretty clear that Nate isn't good at basketball, jumping around strangely and getting easily juked by Devin. Steel's not all that good either, traveling several times. For those not familiar with basketball, traveling is a violation where a player illegally moves their feet, usually by stepping without dribbling the ball. He passes back to Nate and does his signature move, Jackrabbit Zords, throwing Nate bodily into the basket. Nate is stunned for a moment, but when Steel pulls him and the ball through, he realizes that they scored 2 points, and they win! Woo! Zoe quietly points out to Ravi that they were losing by 20 points, but Ravi says just to let them have this one. Basketballs are orange, and so am I. What does that have to do with throwing shades? Nothing, really. Episode 12, Real Steel. Pros, Nate and Steel were both so good. A complicated moral, and another good comedy stinger. Cons, the episode undercuts its own drama, a pretty pathetic monster, and a rare bad day from Commander Shaw. I was tempted to go with a third 3.5 in a row, but excellent acting from 2 actors pushes it past the line. Real Steel gets 4 shades out of 5. Good dang, this cast is good for some great emotional acting. Abraham Rodriguez grabs hold of my heartstrings yet again. Another strong emotional performance, especially when he was explaining to Zoe why he felt so hurt. Some people might think that Nate was overreacting, but remember, Nate grew up in a lab. These are his first experiences with having friends and having a brother, and I think his emotional swings are both understandable and compelling. Even more challenging than conveying proper intense emotion is doing so when your character doesn't have a face. So equal credit goes to Jamie, put him in the opening credits already, Linehan, and Steele's body actor, whose name I'm afraid I don't know. You could just hear the sadness in Steele's voice when Nate was mad at him, and his body language conveyed that as well. This moral is far more complex than the last couple that we've gotten, and the episode kind of digs into it slowly as the audience learns what Nate is actually mad about. In the end, I'm not even entirely sure what the direct moral of the episode is. The best I can come up with is don't be afraid to try new things. It's just a more complex story about friends and family and wanting to fit in, and I think it worked pretty well. And my Zordon! They may be finally starting to get this whole comedy stinger thing. Ben and Betty have a strong presence in this episode with 0 slapstick. They just are 2 friends of the Rangers who happen to be there. The ending comedy involves 2 of the Rangers just having fun and being goofy, and it earned my data laughing cutaway because it works. The comedy should involve the Rangers, not just the 2 characters who are designed to be comic relief. As I said, I think the main crux of this was an editing error, a misplaced scene, but the whole drama with the Zord computer could have been better handled. And all you really have to do is place the scene where Nate tells Devin that he can launch his Zord after the scene of the Gigadrone being detected. Otherwise, it makes no sense for Shaw to be rushing Nate to get the Zord computer repaired when they have nothing to use the Zords on. And we're getting to Lady Shaw. I will give the episode credit for kind of lampshading this, but Clonetron was pretty pathetic as a monster, oddly unthreatening. It's fine for a monster to not be a great fighter, but it just makes the Rangers kind of look like bullies. I'm not saying they should have let it live. It hurt them, it did damage, it wanted to destroy them. Just that they look that way, kicking the thing around without it being able to fight back. And yes, Commander Shaw. I think the striking head of Grid Battle Force must have missed her morning cup of coffee because she definitely had an off day. She calls Nate and Steel in for a come to Zordon meeting since they fought badly against Clonetron. Except they didn't fight badly against Clonetron and their conflict only sprang up after the fight was over. Then the aforementioned bugging Nate for the Zords when they had nothing to use the Zords against just yet. Last week, I forgot to mention until the very end that Roxy had placed one of the data chips on the Robotron to collect beast power info. This week, Blaze forgot to actually do it. Yeah, we kind of stepped away from that subplot this week, and this gives the episode a very weird, kind of fillery feeling. It can be placed anywhere after Nate and Steel become Rangers, and really it's only Steel's presence in the episode that requires it even to be placed there. Nate and Steel don't even morph. However, filler can still be good or bad, and this was good for sure. Great acting, a complex moral, good comedy, just pretty good overall. Can 13 avoid being unlucky and dropping back into the threes? Let's find out with a peek at Tuba Triumph. After witnessing a boy being bullied for his choice in musical instruments, Ravi takes him under his wing. That is going to do it for another Power Rangers Beast Morphers episode review. Heroes, thank you so much as always for watching. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this episode as well as my review of it. What did you think of Nate in this episode? Did you think he was overreacting, taking things too far? Or was it understandable, like I said, with his growing up in a lab and all of this being new to him? Let me know down in the comments below, and while you're down there, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and let me know that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all of my videos and ring that bell. Get your notifications set up so you'll be notified of whenever I post brand new videos, such as these Power Rangers Beast Morphers episode reviews. And if you would like to financially support my channel, you have a brand new way of doing so. Yes, you may have seen earlier today, I posted my launch announcement video for my Patreon. Yes, finally. As of the recording of this video, I had not launched the page, however it is launched now, so I don't have a direct URL for you at the moment of filming, but you can go to Patreon and search for Orange Ranger videos and find me there. Various support tiers, exciting perks in return, just go and check that out. But if you don't want to commit to monthly support, you can still head on over to ko-fi.com/orangerangervideos and buy me a coffee. Imaginarily delicious, just like I said. As I set it down, those are set at $3 a piece, and I greatly appreciate any support I find at Patreon or Ko-fi or just sharing that information, watching the videos, subscribing, all of that good YouTube stuff. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Devin walks in and agrees to teach Steel how to play basketball. But that worker from before is calmly sitting on the bench reading a newspaper. Anyway, and hey, yeah, that's actually Natron, and then right after that, they go running directly at the monster, and Rovi, throwing the sword at the Gigadrone before it even lands. No. Nate once told him that basketball is a game that you play with a ball. Learning how is a type of science. Of course, this is a complicated moral, and another good. Excellent acting from two actors pushes it past the line. Even more challenging than conveying proper intense emotion is so credit go, oh God. And my Zordon, they may be finally, they just act as two, and all you really have to do is place the scene where Nate tells Devin that his Zord has been Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all of my videos and ring that bell. I guess I should ask a question.